bio and a eulogy. We got to make sure we change the good afternoon. That means you in the cheap seats by the exit signs as well. Good afternoon. So you're having dessert, so I want this to be substantive, informative, but hopefully a little bit of infotainment, because I want to talk to you about the changing context in which your businesses operate, how we provide care. Yes, I studied demography, and yes, we'll talk a little bit about numbers, but if I can leave you with anything today, let me start at the very beginning of the presentation. Please do not allow an Excel spreadsheet to allow you to believe that numbers alone are destiny. Demography is destiny, but it's not just about numbers. What I want you to think about is how aging, how longevity is changing how all of us live. In fact, hopefully what I'll bring to you today is a longevity perspective. That is the system and ripple effects of other generations that are affecting your markets today and your markets tomorrow. Now, you have to understand my day job is teaching, so class participation is always 10% of the grade. I'm going to ask you the following first question out of the box. What are the two things we like to say we can depend upon in society? Okay, we got one person sucking up to the teacher, but the rest of you, what are you doing? Death and taxes, absolutely. Apparently taxes, yes. Death, not so much. Imagine this. The funeral home industry, if you will, and the only way you can put it, is lamenting that they are losing sales. You see, we are not dying at the rate we once did. So while Clay Christensen, a great scholar at the art school up the river, what's it called? Oh yeah, Harvard, that's it. Had the whole theory around disruptive technology, I want you to think about disruptive demographics. The future of your business is not just more old folks. These folks are very different. And I'm not talking about the boomers are coming, you know that song. But the boomers are buying for the people that you're selling to today. So while we think about disruptive technology, I want you to think about disruptive demographics. How does this change what we do, how we buy, how we take advice and the like for the future of senior housing? So any good story has a natural arc. And I thought I'd put it down graphically for you. At the beginning of this presentation, I think you'll be relatively happy. Unfortunately, I'm going to give you some ideas as to what's changing in the marketplace that's going to give you agita. So I would hold off on the coffee right now. But then at the end of it, I hope to arc it back up where you're going to see there is a, shall we say, a light at the end of what could be a dark tunnel for an industry that if it does not move today, there are going to be innovators that are right now you're going to dismiss as on the horizon. But trust me, they are coming very quickly. Look at these great kids. They're really cute. You know why? They're not teenagers yet. But I want you to think about this. The data suggests that if you're born in 1999, other data says 2007, that you're likely to live to 100 plus years old. Half the children in the so-called industrialized world will live perhaps 100 plus years. Start thinking in terms of longevity, not just in terms of 65, 75, 85 benchmarks when people come in and out of properties and care. But start thinking about what a new world is looking like for a 100-year life. Ask yourself the following. Why do we ask children, what are you going to be when you grow up? We need to start asking questions like, how many things will you be when you grow up? Do you really believe that having an education from someone like me is going to last you for a lifetime if you graduate at 21 or 25 and you're in the workplace for 40, 50, maybe even 60 years? Well, my wife of 33 years want to hear me tell the same jokes over and over and over again. By the way, guys, we're going to come back to that in a moment. This is not going to end well for the men in the room. But if you're going to live that long, for all of you that are predicating your business plan on wellness, I just want you to know there's a fine line between well-being and just making it feel like a longer time. And as we know, find yourself on the map. The darker the state, the older the state. Yes, the baby boomers are turning 73 or 74, depending whose numbers you look at, every 7 to 8 seconds. So this is not going to be a baby boomer discussion as much as it is a change in attitude. In fact, I want to talk to you about what I've called the longevity economy. I want you to imagine an entire unknown continent, an emerging market for those of you that are investment geeks, that is emerging out of the ocean, hiding in plain sight. And we're ignoring it. We're only looking at the numbers going, more old people, And therefore, we need more stuff that we've always given old people, maybe with a few fine changes. But really, you missed the point. If you only look at the numbers and only see this rising tide as more of the same, it is missed opportunity. It is both revenue and opportunity left on the table. So talk just briefly about the numbers. If you look at the 60 plus, they make up the third largest economy in the world after the GDP of the US and of China. But by the way, if you look only at the United States, the 50 plus, while it's highly diverse, makes up 70% of the consumer spend in the United States. So while a lot of people are chasing millennials, there's a lot of them. I've got a lot in my lab. I've got 2 at home. They're great kids. They've got no money. And so the fact of the matter is, in terms of who may be your resident is different from who may be your, shall we say, your buyer. Here's something we don't think about. The next generation of older adults, and even the people that are coming to you today, have far more formal education than ever any time before. Now, I have empirical evidence working in Cambridge every day to tell you that education does not make you smart, but it does give you chronic attitude. And so as a result, look at this, 64% of the 65 plus believe, think about this mathematically for a minute, 4% of the 65 plus believe that their IQ is higher than average. We can go out and do a field trip to find out 74% of the 65 plus, on the other hand, have a great deal of confidence in themselves. Think about the previous generation, many of them living in your AL facilities today in particular. They were nice people. They're polite. They're respectful. If you've got letters after your name, you must be a smart college boy. All of us in this room, I am willing to bet, are not as patient, not as polite as our parents and our grandparents. And just because you got a couple letters after your name, hell, I could just find out how to do my own brain surgery. I'm going to pull it up on YouTube, and I'll figure it out myself. And the digital divide, yes, it's out there. Does anyone want to know who the fastest growing group of people on Facebook is today? Women over age 50. And grandmothers. This is why if you want to harass any of my students and ask them, hey, do you have a Facebook page? And they look at you in horror because no one wants to post what they did Friday night to have their mother and grandmother see it Saturday morning. So the digital divide, this notion of how do I integrate technology into my property? That should not even be a question. It's how fast can you integrate it in? And by the way, how dynamic can you change it? Because these folks are learning not just from each other, but from their families as well. That longevity dynamic of talking across generations. Here's something I didn't think about, though. The video game industry is now targeting older adults. Many of you may be familiar with Wii Wrist and Wii Elbow. The whole Wii Bowling League is now creating an entire medical category of ligaments and sprains from playing so hard and so fast. In fact, the folks who do play video, the over 60, play it the most. Let me talk to you about coffee, since it's being served. I wanted to use you as an example, if you will, of how to think about the marketplace. Remember, and I think you have a presentation later on today that I think should be great. Consumers never learn or benchmark you off of your competitor. They rarely do. They benchmark you off of every single experience they've had elsewhere in other industries. Looking across is the way to see innovation in your businesses and where investment should be. So let's talk about coffee. All of us are pretty familiar with it. To me, it's a food group. Now, how many of us are old enough to remember this? This is not coffee. This is swill that our parents tried to tell us was coffee. I want to ask you something. What happens when a generation that's used to all of that comes to a place and has a very narrow sets of offering? What I'm telling you is that we have seen change in every aspect of our lives. The consumer, the buyer, even if it's the baby boomer or Gen X woman, is expecting new and different for her parents and her grandparents. They've seen it everywhere else. They're not going to accept that this is complex, this is expensive, whatever it might be. So in fact, the next generation is looking a lot more like this. Now this is the extreme, but these photos were taken off of Instagram. And for those of you that are over 50 and don't know what that is, we'll explain it to you later, off of Instagram. These are photos, if you will, people all identifying themselves as over age 75. Now, is this the extreme? Perhaps it is, but this is Chile, United States, UK, Japan, and the like. The fact of the matter is, the next generation of buyers and users, yes, I am a Jimmy Buffett fan. I'm probably one of the few academics that have quoted Jimmy Buffett 3 times in an academic book. But the fact of the matter is, as Jimmy Buffett would say, we are the people your parents warned you about.